Hi everyone, I'm Varun Yadav. I'm Senior Cloud Engineer here at Oracle. And in this video, I will be going through how to send push notification to Visual Builder Cloud Service, a progressive web application using Node.js server. And we will also use API gateway. So let's talk about the flow diagram for this application. Let's start with the user. User will interact with the web application using Visual Builder, and we will register service worker to subscribe to the notification. We will use Rapid method known as voluntarily application server identification. Without Rapid, any server could theoretically send push notification to user who have subscribed to them, creating potential for abuse or spam. Rapid ensures that the push notifications are being sent from a trusted and identifiable server, which can be validated by the browser. Most modern browsers mandate that push notification, service worker, and Rapid operate only over secure context, that is HTTPS, as they handle user data and interaction in the background. So that's the reason we are using API gateway so that we can create HTTPS method. And we have also created Node.js server, which will handle the subscription and sending out the push notification. To handle the subscription data, we will use JSON file to store user subscription detail. Here we can use database to store that information, but this is just an example, so we will keep it simple. For the demo, first we will start with setting up the Node.js server so that we can store the subscription detail and also send out the push notification. Second, we will configure API gateway so that our Node.js server can talk over HTTPS. And lastly, we will set up the VBCS application. Let's start by deploying our Node.js server. For that, we will need to deploy our server in a compute VM. So let's create an instance first. Here, I'll just leave the name default compartment that I want to create the instance. And then I'll change the image and shape of that instance. So we can select Oracle developer image because it will have all the things installed like Node.js, Java, and all those things. And then we'll change the shape. If you think 1 GB OCP and 16 GB RAM is enough, go for it. But if you want to use less memory, you can also change it over here. Select the shape and then select the network, whether you want to create a new network or you want to choose the existing virtual cloud network. And for the SSH, if you want to generate the new key pair, you can download it from here. And if you have existing key, you can simply upload it over here. And finally, if you want to generate it as an Terraform stack, you can do it over here. If not, simply go ahead and click create. This will take about 2 minutes or so to provision. And once it's provisioned, we will SSH into it and deploy our. Now, my instance is up and running. So what we can do is we can SSH into this and install our Node.js server. So I'll copy the public IP address. And here is my code for Node.js server in the Git repository. So now you can see we have SSH into our instance. So first step is to clone our Git repository. So I'll simply run the command, and if I do ls, I can see my push notification folder created. So let's change the directory, push notification. I have subfolder called server. And now if I do ls, I can see content of the server. So now let's install all the packages needed for our Node.js server. For that, we will run npm I command. And now you see all of the packages are being installed. If I do ls, node underscore module folder is created. Now let's generate our rapid keys and set up our environment variable. To generate our rapid keys, let's run a command npx web push generate rapid keys in a JSON format. So now you can see this is our public and private key. Copy this and store it in a notepad. Next, we will create a .env file in our project. To do that, we can do touch.env and let's open this file. So we can do vi.env. Let's add our rapid keys over here. So to do that, first let's take a look at the format. So here in my GitHub repository, we have .env-example. We can simply copy the content of this and I'll paste it over here. Replace the email with your email address and paste the private key and the public key. Once done, save this .env file. And To run this server, there are multiple ways. First, either we can do it like node app.js. This will run our server on port 4000. So to access this, what we can do is like we can open our browser. I can copy the public IP address, and if I go and hit the port 4000, we should be able to reach it. But as you can see, it says like site can't be reached. The reason for that is our port 4000 might not be open on our subnet. So let's take a look. If I go to my VM and click on the subnet, go to my security list, and I can see whether port 4000 is open or not. So I do see 4000 is open. So I'll stop the server for once, and I'll paste this command to open up the port 4000 on our VM. After doing this, I'll just reload my firewall. Okay, and once again, we will run our server. And if I go back, and now let's try to hit the URL, and we can see like it's complaining cannot get, but at least we are getting the response back. So now let's take a look at the code, what we are doing so far. So if I go to my GitHub repository and click on app.js, let's take a look at the code. So here I'm using Express to create our Node.js server. And what we are doing is, first of all, we are passing the environment variable for the webpack public key, private key, and the email. After that, we are simply creating few APIs, one to save the subscription. Here, whenever we call this API, it will check whether there is a data in the JSON file. If not, then it will add the subscription. And when we call this send notification API, it will simply read the database and then send notification to each of them. And if there is any error, we'll get a fail to send notification. And I have created few more APIs for deleting the subscription and even to send the custom notification. So you can take a look at this code, but this is not necessary for the purpose of the demo. And finally, I'm opening up the port. So port that we have configured over here is port 4000. And I'll show you our JSON file as well. So we are using db.json file for storing the subscription. So this is what it looks like. Here, instead of using the JSON file, you can use a database, an actual database, whether it can be autonomous database or VBCS, and you can use that to store the subscription detail. But for the sake of the demo, I am just keeping it simple. And in database.js file, we are simply reading that file using lowdb package and storing all the information in that JSON file. One more tip before we continue. So right now, when I'm running node app.js, it will run as long as if I don't terminate this session. But to keep it running in the background, what we can do is like we can install a package called npm install-gpm2. So pm2 help run the application in the background. Oh, as you can see, there is some error. Says permission denied. What I can do is like use a sudo command and then run it. And now it's installed. So what we can do is like just simply use the command pm2 start app.js. Okay, let's fix this error. Maybe we need to add the path in the bash. Let's see. And now if I do which pm2, okay, there we go. So if I do pm2 start app.js, this should work. And as you can see, now it's running. So it gives the name of app and it says like, where it's running, this is the PID. And if we want to stop the instance, we can simply do pm to stop and the name of the application. So if I go back to my Chrome browser and if I once again refresh the URL, as you can see, it is working fine. So now if we stop the SSH connection, we don't have to worry about the application running in the background. And even if the instance restart, pm2 will take care of restarting our application as well. So it's a very good utility tool for running the application in the background. So with that, now our Node.js server is configured. Let's move on to now with our Node.js server in place. What we want to do is we want to create a secure connection. For that, we will use Oracle API Gateway, so that Oracle API Gateway can call this endpoint and we can use Oracle API Gateway endpoint for the secure connection using HTTPS that our VBCS application will consume. So I'll go back to my Oracle Cloud tenancy, and if I search for API, we'll go to the gateway, and here as you can see I don't have anything created. So I'll create one, maybe give a name push notification public, and I'll select the network for this, create gateway. Okay, so now our gateway is provisioning it. Let's give it like few seconds, and then once it's created, what we'll do is like create a deployment. Now our API gateway is created. Let's create a deployment. I'll click on create deployment button, and I'll give a name of simply push, and let's add a path prefix /push, and let's add the course. So I click on add. Allowed origins, we'll keep it star, but if you want to narrow it down, you can provide the VBCS URL. Allowed methods, let's put get and post. And for the headers, let's add content type, and let's add another one called origin. We click on apply changes, click next. We will leave it open, no authentication, but if you want, you can see that's an option for single authentication and multi authentication. We'll click next. And now we want to technically add two paths. One is to save the subscription, and another one is for sending out the notification. So let's add first with save subscription, and the method will be post. Backend type is HTTP, and here we will provide the URL. So URL is simply our compute VM public URL with the endpoint of save subscription. So I'll paste it over here, and let's add another route. So here this one will be for send notification. Method will be get, again HTTP, and our URL will be the same way we did for save subscription. Click next. Review the information. Prefix push is fine, origin, header, methods, everything is fine, and route 1, route 2 looks good, and we'll go ahead and click create. Once the endpoint is created, we will find the endpoint information over here. If you click on show, you will see the endpoint. You can click copy and save it in a notepad. Now finally, let's create our Visual Builder application. So I'll start with new application, and I will give a name, and I'll select empty application for now. Now let's create a web application. Give it a name, click create. So before we do anything in this application, we want to add a service worker. So if we go to the source code, if I open up my application, there is no way to directly add a JavaScript file over here. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll simply export this application. So now in my Finder, what I'll do is like I'll open up the application, go to the web application, the name of my application, and here I want to create this new file. To add the file, there are many ways. What I'll do is simply open up this application in VS Code. That's my preferred IDE, and I'll create a new file called sw.js, and that's it. And using terminal, I will compress this folder again. So I'll use the command zip -r, name of the zip file, and the folder that you want to compress. All right. So now I can go back to my Visual Builder, and if I click on the three dots on the top right, and if I can click on the import, I'll simply upload the zip file again. And now you see there is a sw.js, that's our service worker file. Right now this is empty. Let's add our code into this. I'll copy a code over here, and let's walk through the code. We are setting up the event listener for the activate event. It runs when the service worker is activated, which is the perfect time to set up the push notification. We are using the push API to subscribe to push notification. The await keyword means we'll wait for the operation to complete before moving on. User visible only is set to true, ensures that every push message will result in a visible notification to the user. And application server key is our rapid public key. We will convert base64 string into U integer 8 array, which means 8-bit unsigned integer. If you have a public key handy, which we created for our Node.js server, paste it here in the codes. This key is crucial for authenticating our server with push notification. So before calling the API, what we are doing is like we are converting the string into a U integer 8 array. This conversion is crucial for web push notification, particularly when dealing with the webit keys. So this small function is converting our string into the array. After we have created the subscription, we send it to our server to be saved. This allows our server to know where to send push message in the future. For the URL, we can go to our API gateway, we can check our deployment, and we can copy that endpoint. Whenever there is a push notification from our server, this event listener will look for it, and we can get the message from the payload and finally show the notification to the user. So the notification will have the title of this is notification, and options will have the body of whatever message we are getting from our server. So overall, our service worker is very simple. We are just adding the event for push manager and notification, and we are subscribing to our uh, push notification API. So now let's go back to our web application. I want to add a button with the label save subscription, and we can create an event for that. So here in the JavaScript tab, let's add some code. So first of all, we are calling this function to check the permission. The first condition is checking whether the service worker is supported by the browser or not, and this is essential to send out the push notification. Next, we are verifying whether the browser supports the notification API. And lastly, we are checking whether the browser supports the push API. Next, in this function, we are registering our service worker and we are passing the path. I'll walk through the path when we will call this in the action chain. So here we are checking whether the service worker and the push manager are available or not. And then we are registering our service worker using the path. And if there is any error, it will throw an error. And finally returning the registration object. And also the last function we have created is to ask the notification permission from the user. And this is necessary because we can't really show the notification if we don't have the permission. So to call all this function, we have created a main function where we are first checking the permission, then we are requesting for the notification permission, and finally we are calling the registering the service worker function. Now with our code in place, let's go back to our action chain. And in the button action chain, we will assign the call function and we will call our main function. And to pass the path, I'll simply click on the FX and go to the system, and here I'll add the path. So this will add the application path for the service worker. Now at this point, we can test our application. So if I click on the preview button, this will open up our application in a new tab. And what I can do is I can open the developer tools just to make sure that everything is working fine. And if not, we can receive the error. So I'll clear the console. And now I'll click on save subscription. So you can see the first thing it shows is our asking for the permission for sending the notification. I'll click allow. And then it is registering our service worker, which is successful. So at this point, if I want to see whether it actually saved the subscription to our Node.js server or not, this is a good time. So I can open up my terminal and then I can run the command open pm2 logs app, and here you can see it is subscribed to the endpoint. Let's create one more button to send the notification from the application. For that, we will filter out the button in the component, drag and drop, and I'll rename the label to send notification. And for the event, let's create an event on this button. I'll rename it to avoid the confusion. So I'll say like send notifications. And now we want to call the REST API. But first we need to add the REST connection. So I'll click on the service connection. I'll create the service connection defined by endpoint. And here we will need to pass the URL of the API gateway. So I can simply copy it, go to my VBCS application, paste the URL, and I'll paste the end route as well. Send notification. Method is get. Next, I'll say push server for the backend name. Authentication is none. Click next. And service name is send notification. All right, let's click create and go back to our main start action chain. And I'll select the send notification action button chain. And here I'll select the endpoint. And that's pretty much it. So now whenever we click on the send notification, this should send out the notification on the browser. So let's try this out. I'll click on the preview button. So let's check the notification. There is no notification right now. I'll click on send notification. And as you can see, there is a hello world notification. So this is our demo on how to send push notification to Visual Builder web application using Node.js server, and we are also using API gateway. I quickly want to show you a few debugging tips if you are facing any error while saving the subscription or sending out the notification. One thing that you can do is like click on the three dots if you're using the Chrome browser and reset permission and click on reload. That's fine. And open up the developer tools and go to the application and see if there is any service worker already registered. If there is a service worker registered and you are still not able to receive the notification, click on the storage, scroll down, and here make sure unregistered service worker is checked, and then click on clear set data. So what that will do is like it will delete all the service worker that are registered, so that when you click on the save subscription, it will again register the service worker and save the subscription to our Node.js backend. And then when you click on the send notification, that should be able to send the notification back to the VBCS application. I have updated the GitHub repository with VBCS application, so you can simply download this application and upload to your own VBCS instance. Also, I have updated README. If you want to follow along the steps written over here, you can install the Node.js server in your own compute VM. Keep in mind this Node.js server is only for the demo purpose. Do not use it in the production. And if you have any issues or any questions, simply go to the issues tab and create a new issue. I'll try to reply as soon as possible.